Welcome to the Forging Honor podcast. I'm Jonathan George.
And I'm Benjamin Jones. Here at Forging Honor, we explore what it means to live as Christian men. Along the way, we'll be doing challenges, building habits and character through action.
It is challenge intro time, or challenge introduction time. We're being formal. Get the duction on the intro. As a reminder, challenges last for 6 weeks. That's a total of 42 days, assuming you do 7 days a week. You don't have to. Sometimes we just do 5. But if you're doing 7 days a week, 42 days, they are simple daily tasks to grow us as men. And the current challenge, well, I should say the new challenge, is to turn your phone completely off for a full hour every day. So that might sound like a hefty challenge to some of you and sound like a super easy thing for others. Banjo, are you excited about this? How do you feel about it? Are you ready?
I have tricked myself into thinking that this will be an easy challenge. It probably will not be. I think when this is not something that I will hold anybody to. I'm not even going to hold myself to it. But I think just something that just occurs to me now that would be interesting would be if you've turned your phone off during this challenge and you've set it, try and set it somewhere out of reach. I would just maybe take it on one of those days, have like a sheet of paper on you and keep track of how many times you either go to check your phone or go or think about checking your phone. So obviously the goal is to not turn it on, not to check it, not to do any of those things. But it would be worthwhile to take stock of how many times you go for the phone, because I think that would be an interesting measurement of maybe how addicted are we to these things, or how dependent have we become on these things. So that's where I'm starting from. How are you feeling about it?
I really like that idea. Kind of goes back to when we used to do our Forging Honor journals. And that was the whole thing. Yeah. I think we could keep doing that. We can call it, I'll grab a notebook and call it my Forging Honor Journal for this specific challenge. I am excited about that. I've done the thing before where I don't have my phone in my pocket and there's like a phantom buzz and like I feel like I got notified.
Yeah.
That's definitely happened to me before. So we'll be keeping track of some of that. There are a few caveats in this challenge that I wanted to point out. One, it's meant to be during some time that you're actually up and doing something. This is not meant to be, I put my phone aside and I turn it off and now I'm going to go take a nap or actually go to sleep for the whole night or something, right? Because you're not on your phone anyway during that time, or you shouldn't be. So this is during your work day, when you're around your family, when you're doing some activity with friends, I don't know what it is, but you turn your phone completely off for a full hour. It'd be a fine addition to turn it off while you're sleeping, but that's in addition to this. Banjo, you had something?
Well, maybe one thing to add to that, like the purpose of the challenge is not to be kind of like deliberately annoying to the world to yourself. It's not like don't choose the most active hour of your workday to be like, oh, this is when I'm going to step away from my phone.
Sorry, boss, I can't reply to any of your messages.
But I think maybe to tie it a little bit to our previous challenge, I think one of the big takeaways from our conversation about ritual is the conversation about monotasking and about being present. And I think probably the main goal here is, have time where you're dedicating an hour to making sure that you are not being pulled away from whatever it is you're supposed to be doing by your phone. I think specifically in our context, JJ, you and I, both have families, wives and whatnot. Spending time with them is probably the main focus.
I just want to point out that because you don't have kids, you added and whatnot as it like, so my kids got lumped into whatnot.
And I have a plant, so
they're the same. It's the same level of effort, really. Good stuff. I will say there are going to be some easier ways to do this and some harder ways to do this. Like Banjo was saying, probably not best to do this during your most connected time of the day. However, what that means is it'll be easier to do it probably during the first and last hour of your day. So when I've done it in the past, it's usually I won't look at my phone for the first hour of the day or something. That's a lot easier than you realize once you've made up your mind for that. Especially if you go ahead and get up and maybe you're doing some Bible reading or you're enjoying some time outside or some exercise. You don't necessarily need your phone for that. Now, there was some question.
Oh,
what do you have?
Can I add one thing? The evening, I just want to encourage folks on that evening side of things. If you take an hour beforehand, lots of studies out there you can look up talking about how spending that last hour of the night away from technology, especially away from your phones,
the blue light
can be really helpful. Yeah, really helpful for getting a good night's sleep. So, highly recommend doing that. And I'm going to try and get better about that because I'm not good at it.
Cool. Very good. There was some question about, is this all devices or just the phone? I think that's for each person to decide. The main thing is, I think the big distraction for a lot of us is our phones, which is why we're focusing on that. If you want to take the time in the evening and it's all devices off, I think that's great. Good on you. That's a great stretch goal. I'm not going to say you have to do that, though. One thing I've done to make this a little bit easier in the past, because I do sometimes need to be connected, or if there's an occasion where you feel like there might be an emergency call that comes in, or maybe you have a job that requires that you be on call, you can utilize a dumb phone and swap your SIM card into that dumb phone. Not all SIM cards work for this, so you need to double check that yours does, or maybe you need to order a new one. But that's something I've done. So the SIM card in my smartphone can swap into a dumb phone, so I can still get a call if I have to. Now, this is most useful for me because I typically don't use my smartphone on Sundays. That's not every Sunday. But there's another stretch goal, 1 full day a week. And then some people even talk about like 1 full week a year of no devices. So this is kind of a segue into one of the resources that I would recommend and where we're getting this challenge, or one of the places we're getting this challenge. It's Andy Crouch's book, The Tech Wise Family. So in that book, he has a number of different rules for his family, like the 10 commandments of tech. One of them is for 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and 1 week a year, they set aside all their devices and go distraction free. So that's where this challenge is coming from. I think those are great stretch goals. We're starting with the 1 hour a day. Have you read that book, Banjo?
I have not. I have not read that book. I have read some other material from Andy Crouch and appreciated some stuff. One book that I've read that I'll be thinking about with this challenge is the common rule.
You've mentioned that one before, yes.
Yeah, a really good read, short read. You can knock it out in a day. But he's got some just really great stuff about fasting, especially, and that's going to be some of the mindset that I have coming into this challenge and thinking through some of that, and knowing that it's not going to be super pleasant, but trying to think of that kind of stepping away from something to direct those thoughts back to prayer, back to the Lord. That's part of the hope for me in this challenge, I think. JJ, I wanted to ask you though, have you tried like a week without tech? Is that something that maybe we can talk about that in a later episode, but
short answer for now is I've never made it a full week. For various reasons. I have gone very trimmed down. So usually that is the dumb phone option. And often it's because I'm out in the woods or something. So I don't have access to my other, like my computer or work devices, etc. No TV, no nothing. But I will still take some form of communication with me, mostly for emergency purposes. I'd say the longest I've done that for probably 4 or 5 days. But often that's in the context of being out in nature. It's not in the context of in my own home where I'm intentionally setting aside that distraction. So that would be cool to try out at some point. We'll see. If I don't think that's going to happen with this challenge. I do have work after all. Well, there's one thing to point out. Cal Newport makes a distinction between work tech and personal tech, because it's very difficult to it would be very easy for someone to hear this and go, well, I'm setting aside all work tech too. No, we're not encouraging you to get yourself fired from your job. There are levels to this, right? So, at any rate, so something Andy Crouch talks about in TechWise Family is, why does this technology thing, why is it such a beast? Why do we care about it so much more than a lot of other issues right now today? And I think a lot of it comes down to that distraction. So that's going to be a consistent theme in our conversations over the next, 6 more episodes after this. Digging into what does that distraction look like? Where is it coming from? Social media as a big piece of that. We don't have the answers yet. This is the first episode. We're just introducing this. But those are going to be some of the themes. There are a couple other resources that would be good for folks. Tony, I think Reinke is how you say his last name. Reinke? I don't know. It's spelled Reinke for those looking this up. 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You. That came out, was that 2020? Was that 2020? 2021? Something like that?
I think so. I think we were in the middle of college when that was coming out.
So excellent book. Definitely check it out. He gets into some interesting ways that your phone is changing you. And he has some really interesting takes, and he has some positive things to talk about as well with the phone. And then, of course, Art of Manliness. I always mention them. Art of Manliness podcast number 979, How to Create a Distraction-Free Phone. Interesting podcast. He has some interesting takes in that episode about why he doesn't use certain like time limits on his phone, that kind of thing. Some of the tools that Apple and Android are giving us to theoretically spend less time on our phone. And he talks about how those tools are actually doing the opposite of what they claim to do. So I have some expectations from this challenge. Some being hopefully less distraction, being more present, being able to monotask a little better, like you were talking about. I was trying to figure out, are there any harms to this? I threw down on my show notes here, like maybe less communication, but it's 1 hour. Like, I don't know if that's actually going to be a harm. Can you come up with any, Banjo?
Not. I think the biggest danger, and I think it's always the danger with any of our challenges, is just a sense of self-righteousness. That to me is always the biggest danger with any of these challenges. It's just like, oh, well, look at me. I took an hour off my phone. I'm so holy or whatever. I think that's just. I don't think we're trying to say like you're better if you spend an hour less on your phone. My hope for this challenge is really it's just kind of like a check-in, an alert. Like, how much time are you spending on your phone? My wife and I have a little competition going to see how low we can get our. Apple will give you at the end of every week. They'll tell you what your average screen time was, and so we have a little competition going on who spends the most time or the least time on the phone. And that's been fun. She won last week, but that's because I was traveling. It doesn't count. So anyway, I think the danger is self-righteousness. I think maybe some other dangers could be, maybe if you're using your phone for education, I don't know. Maybe that's maybe you fall off. But I don't really think
it's just 1 hour. Like, that's what I can't figure. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. In fact, I think maybe it would be worth like thinking about for ourselves over the course of this challenge. Is an hour enough? Like, should we have made it 2 hours?
Let's make it achievable. Like, I don't know, 2 hours.
Yeah. I think leave it achievable. But then maybe let's think about what is unachievable. Like, what would be an unrealistic amount of time to spend in this challenge and why?
Right.
And maybe that's a good way to test ourselves. Excellent.
What are some ways that you look forward to using your time when you're not on your phone?
I'm going to be thinking about trying to do two things, which is pretty much carrying a notebook and a regular book with me anytime that I'm not carrying my phone. So anytime I have the phone off, I'm going to try and replace the phone with a book, whether a book to write in or a book to read. And we'll see how that goes. Again, we've been going, we often cycle back through the same ideas every week, but that idea of stealing the minutes and kind of that physical monotasking. I bought a new notebook this last week and a really nice big notebook. And I'm hoping that will be a place where I can get a little bit more tangible with my writing, where it can become a little bit more physical. And so hoping to carry that with me, and then hoping to work through a few books that I've been wanting to read and haven't recently, and hoping that carrying that book instead of the phone will be a nice replacement. Anything for you where you're looking forward to, or things you're going to try and replace with?
I think for me, it'll partially depend on the time of day. If I do a morning attempt, that will look like actually digging into some of the Bible reading and digging into some deeper study that I haven't been doing, because it will also force me to have to actually get up earlier, because my job requires that I be on a device at a pretty early hour. So therefore, if I'm going to do a morning time, I have to be up early enough to beat that log on time, right? If I do like middle of the day or evening, I think reading, maybe some studying for work. I've got some certifications I'm working on. Just the regular stuff of life. Really, I think my main hope is that it goes back to that monotasking idea, focusing in, being fully present where I am. So I'm excited for that. Should be good.
Yeah. One last book I'll toss out there before we wrap up. If folks haven't read Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death, now is a very good time to do it. He's writing particularly about like the dangers of television in the pre-internet age, but I really think that it's as relevant now as it ever was. And I think all of the stuff that we will talk about with that he talked about with television, we're going to talk about tenfold with the internet and with cell phones. So would encourage folks checking that one out.
Certainly. Good stuff. All right. Remember, challenges last for a total of 6 weeks. So starting the day after you hear this episode, 6 weeks, that'll be 42 days. Theoretically, this is a simple task. Just turn your phone off, completely off for 1 hour every day. Go do something else. Go outside, go read a book, anything. I'm looking forward to it.
Should be good. This has been the Forging Honor podcast. Music and production is by Elliot George. For more information about what we do or to learn how to get involved, visit our website at forginghonor.com. There you'll find information about our community, the Forge, and how to join other young men seeking to glorify God in thought, word, and deed. You'll also find blog articles, book recommendations, and more ways to grow as a Christian man.
If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend or family member about Forging Honor. We would also appreciate it if you would take a moment to like and subscribe. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, a rating and review only takes a moment, and it goes a long way towards growing the Forging Honor community.
Thanks for taking the time with us today. We hope you'll take up the work alongside us and join us in the task of Forging Honor. We'll see you next time.